Let me now pick up on really addressing COVID-19 related issues, and I will wrap up with CSR. And someone's asked a question of the question really is sustainability through sale of goods, etc. I'm assuming you really mean, can I be doing some kind of money making activity on the side of my actual main NPO objects? And I'll wrap up with that because that's really what I'd like to talk to as my last point. So picking up now on all the problems that this present lockdown has created, right? And I'm going to say something which may be a bit controversial, but I believe that the Indian governance apparatus, and here I say Government of India, state governments across the board, did not really think through what they were doing when lockdown was announced, right? I mean, yes, of course, we all know about the terrible situation of the sort of what is called migrant labor, or whatever you want to call, whatever nomenclature is appropriate. All of that is terrible. There's been a lot of hardship, but I think the real damage is going to be seen over the next few months. And the questions which everyone has around how do I deal with my rent, how do I deal with my employees, what's going to happen to my cash flows, all of this really relates to the fact that for 6 weeks we've effectively stopped work. Now you may say that I was never in business, so I did not stop business, but the reality is that work has stopped. It is going to impact everything. And even those of us who have been lucky enough to continue with working, and so, for example, speaking personally, I've been lucky enough to have had fairly full days on each day of the lockdown. Just my business, if you will, is continuing. But that doesn't change the fact that we all have problems to consider of how do we pay our rent? We aren't even able to occupy our offices. The landlord wants to charge rent. How do we deal with employees? At this juncture, I'm obliged. I mean, there is all these things going out in the newspaper saying you can't terminate an employee, you can't curtail wages, etc., etc. And added to that, you have all this other newspaper reporting of that this state government has chosen to defer this proportion of state government employee salary, etc., etc. Right? So there's a lot of conflicting stuff out there. And then the biggest thing is whether you're in business, whether you're a not-for-profit organization, where's the money going to come from? Because the real world out there is telling all of us that, yes, I'll be happy to pay you. I would love to pay you and I'd love to keep working with you, but you're going to have to give me some accommodation on the payment. I'm not going to be able to make that payment now, right? So in the for-profit world, you would say that the payment cycle is likely to be extended. In the not-for-profit world, I think you guys used capital runway, you guys used donations, etc. But the reality is that the cash flow coming into every organization is going to be under severe stress. Whereas at this point in time, as a consequence of government action, we are really put in a difficult position as far as curtailing the cash flow going out of organizations, right? So let's address each of these things. And I'll specifically focus on rent and HR salary issues, because I think those are very, very material constructs, right? Now, the law on lease arrangements as well as leave and license arrangements in India is fairly clear. It's very difficult to claim a waiver of your obligation to pay rent. And I'm using the word rent loosely, right? Because at law, it means different things. I'm just saying rent for the purpose of our conversation. It's very difficult to say I'm not going to pay rent any longer, right? The fact that you are precluded from using your office for a period of 1 month or 2 months out of a term of 36 months or 60 months or whatever, most people, have leave and license arrangements in that range, is not sufficient to say, I'm not going to pay you that 1 month, 2 month rent. This has been looked at back and forth, and the rationale per se is fairly clear when courts have looked at this previously, saying that, this is a one-off exceptional circumstance which you are suffering in the course of your rental arrangement, your leave and license, your lease, whatever it may be. When you are getting into any long-term arrangement, you need to anticipate that the unknown could occur, and you should therefore make the relevant payment. And this is the position which has obtained for literally hundreds of years. And it might sound a bit simplistic as I articulate it in this manner, but the judgments are fairly well reasoned, and they explain the reasoning on facts specific to the case before them, right? I think the challenge that we are facing here is that this is not something specific to any organization. This is something which is attributable to actions outside of the organization, and which comes from government, and which again applies to everyone. No one has been able to access office, right? Except if you're really an essential service, and then only those limited number of personnel, etc., are allowed to attend. So short answer is, as of today, it's very difficult to say I'm not going to pay rent. It's relatively easy, and I'm saying relatively easy, to say I'll defer the rent or something of that sort. But again, not the best answer to go by. It is likely that someone somewhere is going to sue a landlord and say, listen, I'm not able to pay my rent. This is not my fault. And that proceeding will make its way through the courts. Still a few years from now, we'll have a revised final position. But that's not going to be of much help in today's world, right? So the way to address your rent payment is, number one, certainly seek a deferral, right? On deferral of rent, I want to make a couple of things clear, and especially in the context of Bombay and Maharashtra. First thing which applies globally, deferral does not mean that you're not obliged to pay. It is only a delay in that payment, right? You guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
So a deferral is only a delay in payment. It is not saying that I'm no longer obliged to pay. So when you actually tell your accountant that, boss, I've deferred my rent, he's going to show it as a debt which you owe your landlord. That's one thing to bear in mind. So all deferral does is it protects cash flows. Okay. The second thing, in Maharashtra, there's a fair amount of confusion saying, the government has said that we are not obliged to pay rent, etc., etc. The government has not said that. And certainly not for office space or space which is used otherwise than for residential purposes. What the government has said is that if you are living in a home and you are unable to pay your rent, then the landlord cannot throw you out during the lockdown. Right? In summary, that is that. Of course, that has been picked up by the press, that has been reported in a number of ways, etc. And that is what it is. But please bear in mind that anyone thinking that, I'm in Maharashtra or I'm in Bombay and therefore I'm protected and don't have to pay rent, as of today, at least, there is no reason to think that you are protected and that you do not have to pay rent, right? If you are lucky enough to be able to negotiate with your landlord, and I think a lot of landlords will, over the next few months, come down to some kind of sensible negotiation, then great. But otherwise, bear in mind, your obligation to pay stands. The second thing is, of course, employees. And this is, of course, where the question comes about saying, why on earth has government given a reprieve to residential premises? Because as of today, all of us are obliged to make payment to every person, right? And let me explain that in a little more depth, because it's not as black and white as it is being reported in general mainstream media. So a lot of the real advisories, and they are advisories, right, which have been issued by the government of India as well as various state governments, have been promulgated under the Disaster Management Act. Right? And they say, I have power to do XYZ under Disaster Management Act. So I am telling you, do not terminate anyone and please make full payment. Right? So that is what it is. There is a fair line of reasoning to say that the Disaster Management Act does not give government that authority in the first place. And as of last week, a petition has been filed in the Supreme Court saying, listen, all of this is nonsense. Government has no authority to stop me from terminating my employees. And the reason is very straightforward. Wherever you go, an employee receives wages, and the meaning of wage is money in return for services performed, right? So what the hell is government doing? Now, Supreme Court being Supreme Court, and again, I would argue that this is perhaps not the most shining moment in the history of our Supreme Court. But leaving that aside, they have admitted the petitions, and there's two of them, and there's a lot of stuff around there, but they haven't ruled on it, and the matters are listed for hearing again next week. I think it's on next Tuesday or so. So in summary, first up today, as far as the law is concerned, I would advise against doing anything in terms of truncating employment, whether by terminating employment or otherwise, or even by sort of curtailing wages, right? People who have done that, for-profit employers who have done that, have received notices from the Labor Department, etc. I would guess that a lot of NPOs are small enough to go under the radar. But in the present matter, all it takes is one complaint, and this will become a very large issue. It is an even larger issue because, assuming that all of this is correctly done under the Disaster Management Act, then the only consequence under Disaster Management Act is imprisonment. So again, not the happiest of situations, right? So the advice that we as Bharucha and Partners are issuing to all our clients is, listen, if there's a CEO or a senior manager or someone, and you need to do this again, please, after having some labor lawyer really look at your employee chart, your HR chart, and then seeing what has to be done, right? But if someone is really CEO level senior management or something, and that person is willing to take a haircut, then of course that's something which can be done. But if it's a function of my rank and file, the people who qualify as workmen or as contract employees or something of that sort, please don't touch them right now. That would be by far the more prudent position. Within, I would guess, if not next week, then the week after or whatever, we will know the validity of all these circulars, and we'll be able to take a final decision on that. The reality remains that as soon as this situation is alleviated, which is to say the lockdown ends, people are going to be looking at taking some fairly drastic HR action. It's almost a no-brainer because, going back to where we were half an hour back, where we were talking about just work stopping. If work has stopped and there's no money, I can't afford to pay. I may not be able to even exist as an organization. Yeah. So that's the second piece on HR. There's a clear legal interdict. What you should be doing is, number one, reaching out to qualified lawyers to look at your employee pool, right? And I include in that employee pool contract personnel. Identify which employee is a workman, not a workman, how that termination has to be progressed, what kind of statutes apply to your organization. Larger organizations are subject to a higher degree of regulation than smaller organizations, etc. Right? Get all that in place, get your plans in place, and decide how you would like to progress when the situation allows you to progress. There's a lot of other things to consider, which is the messaging, the narrative, how to help people deal with, frankly, the brutality of the decision, right? Because none of us wants to be terminating people today. The reality is at some point this is going to happen. So how do you deal with that? Those are really HR issues. As far as the law is concerned, prepare, look at the law, look at your contract of employment, etc. I see there's a question which has just popped up. What if each employee consents in writing? As of today, even that is prohibited. As of today, the way the law stands today, that is prohibited. The only way you can really, so you're running a risk. So let me put it this way. If all, without exception, each one of your employees consents in writing, and you then go ahead and you implement the haircut, you may still receive a notice from the Labor Commissioner, which your only defense will be that, this was done consensually by everyone, which is not a defense under the Disaster Management Act, first of all. Secondly, you're also running what I as a lawyer would call executory risk, because all it takes is one employee out of as many as you have to turn around 1 month from now and say, boss, mujhe to nahi karna tha, ye log ne majburi kiya, to maine sahi kiya. Right? And pardon my very Bombaya Hindi on that. But effectively, you're running a risk. So it's a tough call. You're between a rock and a hard place. All of us are. And For the purpose of this conversation, I'd like to leave it there. If anyone has specific queries specific to their organization, you need to seek special advice on this, very focused, very fact-specific advice, because there's no global answer or any one answer of general application. Yeah. So that's on employees. I think that addresses COVID-19. Anything else?